Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin DeWalt. I'm the founder and CEO of ProLego, and today I'm going to offer some suggestions of how you can improve your personal efficiency by 20% using ChatGPT. This is all based on what I use every day and how I have gotten myself more efficient. So there's no hype, no techno babble here. I'm going to show you what works, what doesn't work, and I think I'm going to save you several weeks of work by giving you a couple of quick things you can do that are going to save you a ton of time for getting the most out of these tools. So let me just start off by explaining how we got here today so that you understand a couple of my constraints. I posted yesterday on LinkedIn a few comments of how I was using ChatGPT. Mostly, I think it was around which models that I was using for when. And I got a lot of feedback. And in that thread, I offered to do a YouTube live session for people who actually want to watch me work because I've had a couple of people ask me to do so. And the response on LinkedIn and some messages and emails I got was pretty overwhelming. So I decided to do that. Unfortunately, I had two constraints. The first constraint is the only time I had to do it this week was right now at 10 a.m., like the next day. And I only had 2 hours to prepare for this conversation. So I could choose not to do it or do the best I could in 2 hours. And I decided to do the latter. And I decided to do it by using ChatGPT to do everything to prepare for this presentation and what I'm going to explain today. And so with that in mind, there are two resources that I've shared inside the comments, and you might find that jumping to those is more interesting than hearing me ramble for 45 minutes. So without further ado, I'll share those with you. The first is the set of slides that I put together. These are really just speaker notes. There's nothing amazing about these slides, but they do provide a quick overview of the major points I want to make. More importantly, is I have shared the entire ChatGPT conversation where I did everything. So if you have any questions about how did I do that, why did I do that, what do I do, what do I say, what tools do I use, how do I get things in the slides? It's all here. And you can see what I had to learn and the new skills that I learned along the way from going through this process. So I think those resources will be helpful to you. All right, so let's jump into the presentation then. All right. So I just to set your expectations at the outset, I believe that certain professionals, not everybody, but certain professionals can boost their personal productivity by about 20 to 30% using the generative AI tools, and in particular ChatGPT at the moment for reasons I'll describe. But I want to be clear, like there are no magic bullets here. That like doing any other new skill you're going to learn, it will take effort, it will take time, it will at times be frustrated, and you're going to have to figure out how to adapt it into your workflow. But I'm fairly sure that you will be able to improve your efficiency and the compounding effects of incremental 5, 10, 15, 20% improvements day in, day out is going to make you a vastly more productive professional. And you can use that excess time to either advance your career or, or maybe enjoy life a little bit more and get a little bit more sleep. And so, if you're here for a quick fix and want to set up in 10 minutes, I probably don't have that to offer you. And I hope you will think more seriously about how you can integrate these tools into your life. So with that in mind, let me jump to the next slide here. I guess the biggest, if you're going to take one piece of advice from this presentation, it would be this. When I talk to our clients or friends, colleagues who want to start using generative AI, typically what they will say is, well, I'm not really sure how to use it. I've tried ChatGPT. It sort of worked kind of well for writing and stuff, but I really would like it to do X task. And that could be I want to figure how I can generate my company's financial statements for my CFO every month because it takes me a lot of time. That's very tedious. Or I want to prepare my board deck. I hear this one a lot. Like I want to prepare a presentation for my board or my executive committee. I could do this every month. It takes me forever to pull everything together. How can I help AI to do this? And while that may work and you may get some incremental improvements, I've actually found that I've had much better luck incorporating these tools into everything I do. And what I found is that it kind of lifts me, it boosts my productivity across all tasks rather than focusing on a single complex one. And that's usually because the complex ones are complex for a reason and that may not be easy for AI to overcome. So, with that in mind, I think what I've discovered is that there's a certain type of professional that will get the most benefit out of this. And in particular, people who are constantly context switching, working on like a lot of different initiatives, needing to pull in and talk to experts or, or people with a specific set of knowledge or skill all the time to do their work. And that's small business owners, startup CEOs, founders, product or project managers, people that are kind of at the center of complexity and trying to manage a lot of different things and are constantly pulling information for different periods of time. If you find yourself in a role where you're always having to quickly learn something new, spit up a presentation, pivot your company, develop a new strategy, then I think you're going to get the biggest boost from these tools. And I think I found less so for people who are really locked into a specific skill set, with the possible exception of some programming tasks where I see them getting less benefit from this. And so my first idea is go broad, not deep. Try to think about using this technology in everything you do. And so what do I mean by everything? I mean everything. If I am going to begin any task that requires more than about 30 seconds, I start in ChatGPT. If I just need to reply to an email, skim something quick, send a text message, obviously then the overhead of doing this is just simply not worth it. I'll just do it very quickly. But for almost everything else that requires a couple of minutes of work, I'm finding that is faster to start with ChatGPT. So I'm going to use this presentation as an example. But if you think about how most of us work, whenever you need to start a project, write something, formulate an opinion, research something, anything complex that requires more than a couple of minutes of work, most of us start off in an exploratory phase. And sometimes that's you may search the web, talk to a colleague. Sometimes I'll hit up someone in Prolego, another employee or Russ, to do a quick Slack chat, uh, or often will just like they fire up a Google document and start putting my thoughts together on paper. And I end up going through a series of iteration in my mind to kind of figure out. And oftentimes I'm really just trying to figure out what is the problem I'm actually trying to solve and like what are the steps to get there. I'm kind of wrapping my mind around what I want to do. And this is also the point where I think one of the worst productivity habits in the world, where I see a lot of my clients will say, all right, we're going to call a meeting. Like step one, I got an assignment, got something to do. Step one, call a meeting, pull everyone together, and we start talking about the problem and iterate over that over, maybe 30 minutes or an hour at worst. But, meeting culture, a whole other topic. But what I've found is that these AI models, and in particular ChatGPT, are great at compressing that time. So instead of reading Wikipedia articles and doing, Google searches and sifting through ads and garbage content and reading a bunch of links and, cookie acceptance, instead of doing all of that or even just iterating on a Google Doc, I start with ChatGPT. And so let me just jump right into the thread then. So this is what I did yesterday. I fired up the desktop version of ChatGPT, and I'll explain why I do that in a moment. And I just started rambling. And I describe what I want to do. I want to put together a YouTube live session to show people how I use ChatGPT. And I that was my first step, and I asked ChatGPT to summarize back what I said, and then I started iteratively building the slides that I use today. And I'm not going to walk through this entire conversation. You can get it for yourself. But the biggest productivity gain I got in using ChatGPT for this project is it helped me organize my own thinking. Because instead of if I want to plan for a presentation in Google Docs, I just open up, I start typing, I delete something, I get caught up in formatting and headings and subheading and bullets, delete it, rewrite it, go back. And by using ChatGPT as a reasoning and thinking partner, I can compress that very fast because I instantly see what's on the screen. It is often helping me define the problem in a way that I never quite. Oh, that didn't happen in this instance. Define the problem using a term or a domain that I didn't even know existed, but it saved me that. Oh, now I see what my problem is. It's X. I didn't quite understand it before. I just sort of knew something was wrong. And it gets me through that initial productivity boost, that cycle time of exploration that really allows me to be vastly more efficient. So overall, that's the biggest benefit I get from doing this process. All right, let's go back to the slides. All right, so any, like I said, about any task that's more than about 30 seconds, I start with using these tools. Now let's talk about the tools. Right now, I use ChatGPT because it's the one I'm most familiar with, and OpenAI has the best available models right now. I realize that your LinkedIn feed is full of a streaming pile of garbage about all the greatest models and what everybody's doing in this release and that release. You can ignore 99.9% of that. The real breakthroughs in AI have only come about once every, you know, 6 months or so, and so those are the ones you need to pay attention to. There's a bazillion different, benchmarks out there about models, but generally for the type of task I'm talking about today, the ChatGPT or OpenAI's models are currently the best at doing this type of work, and they are doing the best job of creating tools that have AI as a foundation. Um, so you can also, but I mean, if you don't have access to ChatGPT, you can use other tools. This is not an evangelical tools. That's just the one that I use. The reality is, these companies, Google, Apple, Amazon, Anthropic, OpenAI, Microsoft, they're all competing desperately, Meta, for the open source stuff. And so anything you can do today with one of these models, you're going to be able to do with another one in a couple months. And so if your company doesn't, it only allows you to use Google's models, that's fine. They'll be good enough very quickly to be able to do that if they're not already. So use what tools? Regardless of what you use, I found voice input and audio to be key. For me, it is a massive time saver. And the reason is that these models are very good at generalizing, and it's so fast for me to just pick up my phone or pick up the microphone and just start rambling to get going. It saves a ton of time. So having audio is really important. Uh, and then beyond that, the tools honestly suck, right? ChatGPT has projects and Canvas. Neither one work very well. I've tried both of them for some reasons I can explain if you're interested, but they either don't use the models that I want to use, or they don't integrate with tools very well, or I end up spending a lot of tedious time dealing with formatting issues and everything else. OpenAI just released tasks today. I'm kind of skeptical if that's going to work, but it's possible that will work. At the moment, what I find works best is starting simple with ChatGPT and putting together a workflow that allows you to do what I'm going to explain today. Okay, this is pretty quick, as I mentioned already. So use voice and ramble. It just saves you a ton of time, and these models are very good at generalizing, kind of thinking what you mean. And I do that at my desk. A lot of times, if I've got to go out and walk the dogs, I'll start a project while I'm, walking the dog around the neighborhood. Then I'll start doing hey, this is the project I'm trying to do. Help me figure something out. That initial exploratory phase, I can do a lot of that while I'm, taking a break, washing the dishes, whatever. And it's just so much faster, and you can do it anywhere, anytime, and it just allows you to be a lot more efficient than having to actually type out perfect sentences. The reality is, you can use the wrong words, you can make spelling mistakes, you can ramble, and these models are very good at sifting through that and interpreting what you want. It's a huge time saver. And I think you saw an example of that, of how I started the project yesterday. All right, so now we're getting some of the meat of how you actually work, and where I think some people get stuck. I see a lot of people that will go to these models and try to ask them to start with the task they want. So I could have gone in and said, "Hey, generate my presentation for using ChatGPT efficiently," and what it would have spit out would have been a bunch of generic garbage, honestly, and not that useful. Instead, it's more effective to work in stages. So instead of asking it, so typically the way I will begin a project is by just switch tab here. Begin by rambling in audio about what I want to do, and then I ask the models to summarize back to me what we're going to do together. So that initial summarization step is really key for me, and it does a couple things. One is that it more succinctly says what I'm usually more succinctly says what I'm trying to do than I want to, and it will often help me like understand. Oh yeah, that's the problem or I have, or make me think about it differently. The other reason is that, and the second reason is that they're less likely to get confused. If you get these models to work in stages, they're much better at building iteratively versus asking them to do one big, long, challenging task. And finally, and the one which I think is underestimated by most people is that these models, like LLMs, are very good at reading LLM generated content. They're better at reading LLM generated content than they are human generated content. So if I can get the model to explain to me a concept in its words, it will do so in a way that's easier for it to understand. And so that's very useful. And I guess finally, one point is that for the most part, these models, although they're called generative AI models, they're actually a lot better at evaluation and analysis of a concept than they are generating it originally. So if I can kind of hold their hand in the generation and force them into analysis phase, that seems to be working most efficiently for me. So I started off saying, "That's perfect. I'm going to ramble and blah 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 blah." I just started talking at this point. Once I got it to summarize, I mean, I didn't even have a plan. I was just, I think I might have been doing something else. But you can read what I'm saying here because this is just stream of consciousness, and it spit back a bunch of stuff. And what I realized is, oh, okay, this is the intro and setting expectations. And so I had it and revise it, say, hey, revise it under a heading called introduction. That is exactly what I would have done under a Google Doc once I'd had a few minutes to think. In this case, I just knocked it out very quickly. And anyway, you can read this yourself to see how I work. And we got a longer introduction. All right, back to our slides. Okay, so I think I covered work in stages. I would say this is probably one of the biggest differences I see between people who are able to use these tools really effectively and those that struggle. If you jump in and say, give me the final answer, like I said, you're usually not going to get very great results. You're going to get frustrated. All right, moving right along. Now comes to the real. I'm going to save you a month of work here with this simple hack I have. And if you have a better way to do this, I'm still learning this for myself. So please do it. Please help and provide me whatever advice you have. So formatting is a major pain in the butt when using these tools. I got pretty frustrated because I could, generate like a document in ChatGPT. Then I go cutting and pasting it into Word or Google Docs, and the formatting's all blown up. There's too many bullets, or the headings are wrong, or it just looks like a mess. And then I go in and edit it in Google Docs to make it look right. And then I want to go make a change. I'm back in ChatGPT and I'm just doing, and then I honestly got kind of frustrated and would only use ChatGPT just to generate text and paste it into documents because it was too frustrating to do that. So I've been struggling to find the right workflow to do this, and I think I finally have it nailed, although it is far from 100%. And that is working in Markdown. If you're not familiar with Markdown, ask ChatGPT; it'll explain what it is. But it allows you to more easily integrate between different applications. And in particular, actually, let me just create this right now since I didn't have one set to go. New Google Docs allows you to, let me just see if I can find the preferences here. Okay, you can ask ChatGPT. Let me share this particular, there you go. There's Google Docs. Like there's a setting you can do in Google Docs, probably other applications as well, where you can enable Markdown. And that allows it from what I can tell, it does two things. It gives you like a paste from Markdown and copy as Markdown. And so if you can get ChatGPT to generate in Markdown, you can work back and forth between a Google Doc and keep all the formatting. The same is probably true for Word. I just haven't tried that. So if first tip is set up Markdown in Google Docs so that you can figure out how to work with it. All right, back to the slides. So that's the first step. Unfortunately, what I discovered was ChatGPT. Working with Markdown in ChatGPT got kind of frustrating because if I say render that same document in Markdown, it would do it. And let's see if I can find an example here so that I can show you what I'm talking about in case you're not familiar with this. Let's go to Markdown, blah, blah, blah. Where was it? Stages. Okay, yes, okay. So you can say, you can ask it to render something in Markdown, and then you can copy it easily, and then go to the Google Doc and paste in Markdown, and it captures all the formatting pretty well. Unfortunately, there were other times though, because like Markdown's not easy to read on the screen. Like I can't easily skim and read this. So I wanted to sometimes have ChatGPT render it in a way I could read in ChatGPT. And other times I wanted to render it in Markdown so I could put it into Google Docs for some of the reasons that I will explain in a second. And Charlie wants to get on my lap. So come on up here, Charlie. Join the call. So I struggled to find a way, like I struggled to figure out a way to do this because if I started at sometimes I would say like show me this information as it would be seen by a Markdown reader. Sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we just render it Markdown. I got pretty frustrated until I asked ChatGPT. I went into the O1 model. I said, "What should I do? How should I overcome this problem?" And it told me what instructions to put inside of my ChatGPT customization. I forget what they call it, which I have shared with you in the document. Where is it? Oh boy, gets really good in the end here. So, if you put into ChatGPT some custom instructions, this code right here, copy mode and readable mode. I think that's it. Nope, here it is. Right, here it is. ChatGPT made a mistake. Okay, so um here's there's a here in a conversation of why copy mode and readable mode matters. So I put these instructions, it tells you exactly how to do it. Here's how you add it to ChatGPT, right? Just copy this, add it to ChatGPT, and you can ignore everything else I said. And then when you want to generate Markdown, just say the words copy mode in ChatGPT, it'll generate Markdown. If you want to read the Markdown, like you have stuff in a Google Doc, you want to paste it into ChatGPT, then just say readable mode and it will display it in a readable mode. Do this once in your ChatGPT setup, and then you won't have to deal with this ever again. And if you have better tips for doing this, please let me know. All right, so I apologize for jumping around there through the thread. I'm trying to make it big enough to be seen here on the screen, and sometimes it's kind of long. All right, so that's working in Markdown. Will save you a ton of time with formatting, at least it has for me. All right, so the next one at the moment, deciding which model you're going to use is something you need to think about a little bit. And if you've only tried some of the O1 style models in ChatGPT and seen that there's not much of a difference, I would encourage you to go back and try again, because I've found there to be a tremendous difference than the 4.0 models or some of the Claude or Google models. But I had to work differently to do that. So I'm not going to get into models or a freaking religion for people. It's kind of an annoying conversation. But the bottom line is this stuff is all changing exponentially fast, and it's probably going to be obsolete by the time you read it. Generally speaking, you want to try to find the models that you're able to get access to, either because of the tools you use, your company policies that are the best ones available. That's primarily why I end up using ChatGPT, because they're at the cutting edge of putting out the best information. So here are the three models there. The default model I use is the O1 model. And if you're not familiar with this, within ChatGPT, you can select which model you want to use. You'll get it. So if I'm going to start any kind of project, O1 is my default. The reason is it has the best kind of combination of speed and I guess like lack of hallucinations and errors. It tends to make fewer mistakes. It's pretty good at reasoning. It mostly knows what I want, and if I work through a step by step way, it provides a pretty good think. It's a pretty good thinking partner. The the GPT-4 models really I use this when I want to search the web or if it's very quick copy editing. But generally speaking, they make too many errors, and they will if I like today when I was trying to generate the slides, they would like rewrite the slides and content even when I didn't ask them to, or just put in like, dot 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 suddenly for a long document. And those little errors honestly make it almost useless as a tool and get pretty frustrating. I think that's why a lot of people abandon ChatGPT, because they realize fixing all this garbage takes more time than it's worth. So, but if you want to search the web, you have to use it. And it's actually faster for web searches, quick summarization, anything really fast and quick email generation. Sometimes they use 4.0. So I do have the $200 a month pro subscription to ChatGPT Pro. And the O1 Pro model is I use that if I really want to do some complex analysis. Like if I have a long document and I want to synthesize two different sections, or I wanted to poke holes in my argument, or like change the tone, something that I really want to make sure it spends its time on. The O1 model works pretty well for that. It is slow, and that's the biggest drawback. So I will often kick off a job and just go get some coffee or do something else and come back when it's done. And it's usually kind of at the end of a piece of work when I'm trying to really evaluate what I'm doing. I don't normally do it as I'm working through my work. I use the O1 model for that. As far as the price goes, I mean, I'll be honest with you. How much would I pay to boost my productivity by, 5% a day? I don't know, $1,000, $2,000 a month. I mean, when I look at the savings we have from not having to rely on, other professionals and service providers, freelancers to help us run our business, this more than pays for itself instantly. So the only reason I wouldn't pay $200 a month is if there's a better priced version available. Having said that, I know that not everybody's in that position, and I would say you can get 90% of what I'm talking here with the O1 model without needing the O1 Pro. There may be some other limitations, context window size and speed and availability, that you don't get with the Pro version. But I mean, if you're a startup founder or a small business owner, I mean, this is the cheapest. This is the highest ROI money you could possibly spend. I mean, it's $200 for God's sakes. I would really love to use O1 Mini. I have not found the use for it. It seems to provide the worst of both worlds for me. I seem to get it's the slowness of O1 and the inaccuracy of GPT-4. It doesn't improve. The big caveat, though, that I'm talking about personal productivity here, not using it inside an application. If we're doing a client work project, then and Justin tests different models. O1 Mini might be the best one. So this is a narrow explanation. Anyway, that's how I use the models. They're always changing. Don't get caught up in model religion. It's kind of an annoying conversation. All right, now we're going to get into what has really helped me work efficiently as well. And I call this capture and provide context. Quite often, when you're trying to do a more complex task using these models, the LLM doesn't have all the information you need. I really see this when people are talking about, hey, I want to work with my spreadsheet. I get the tabs and the tabular data into the model, but I really can't do what I want it to do. What it doesn't know what's in your spreadsheet. That information's in your head, right? So if you have a couple, if you've 3 columns, cust_1, cust_2, or even customer balance, like it doesn't know what these words mean. And you have to provide it that context so it can interpret that. Oftentimes, if I'm doing something that starts with a bunch of web searches or a PDF or a document, I try to capture that information into a master document where I can put it into the chat stream and instantly provide the context. So I'm still figuring out this myself, but it works. I think what I'm coming down to is something like this, where if I start out doing a web search with the 4.0 model, um, I will say, hey, do web search, summarize what you find about a company topic, whatever it is. I'll then ask it to put that into copy mode, markdown, right, and capture it there. Then I will usually do a couple of other iterations, asking it to review other documents, maybe emails I have, and I will try to build out that markdown inside the conversation thread that I'm doing. Sometimes I'll ask an O1 model to kick off and go review what I have, but I try to get it into markdown. I then paste that into the Google Doc, so I have like my master document there that has the context for the task that I'm trying to complete. And then I can copy it in markdown and put it, and then I've kind of captured everything I need for this particular problem. And in this case, for this particular project, it is the markdown that I use to generate the slides in the screen that has that's kind of the master document I have with all the context for this particular problem. And it just saves me time from having to retype things, and I can instantly drop it into a thread and have it understand it. That's one way of providing context. Incidentally, if you have read anything about building projects with LLMs and you've heard about these RAG applications, the biggest challenge with building a RAG is getting the right context to the LLM. So in this case, we're sort of doing that manually. Let me just give an example of something I saw somebody else do. Is that if you are applying for a job, you can use ChatGPT to build the context for what you're trying to do. Gather up the information about the employer, everything you can find on the internet, the job description, convert that into Markdown, or maybe JSON format works better if you're familiar with that. But get it into some sort of structured document that ChatGPT generates so that it can read it easily. Keep it into Google Doc or some other like storage format, and then drop it back in there. So if you're going to have a call with a recruiter and you want to like have it prep you for interview questions, you can just throw that context in there and you can start having the conversation. You can often do this by having everything in one long conversation, but the models have to sort back through all that and they can get confused and kind of lost and miss things. So if you capture in the master document, you will find it much more efficiently. And in the chat thread, you'll see examples how I did that. I mean, here's the, here it is, copy mode, right? I'm sorry, I didn't change tabs there, but it doesn't matter. Let's go on to the next slide. All right. So let me actually, I'm gonna cover one other topic here before going to wrap up, and that is like how I figure out how to do things. So let me just go find the right section here so I explain what I really want to. I want you to see what I did. When I started this project, I did not know how to generate slides automatically using. Let's just go find it here. I did not know how to generate slides automatically using ChatGPT. So here it is. I did not want to go through and tediously copy and paste each section of this text into Google Slides. Google Slides does not have a paste with Markdown, which I discovered after I wanted to go use it. So I wanted to find a way to, how do I get this Markdown document automatically into PowerPoint, Google Slides, something that I can present, right? And so I start by asking ChatGPT. It says 4.0 up here because that's the default viewer, but I did use 0.1 for this. And it gave me a list of, I think, like 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, 7 or 8 options. And I looked at that and I thought, no, I'm not going to read all that crap. Like I want to find a quick and easy solution. I'm not going to research all these tools. And so then I went and asked it to tell me which tool I should use. Unfortunately, if you have a web search inside your thread, you can't actually jump to and use the other it's letting me do it here, but it won't let you jump back from 4.0 into 0.1 or one of the more advanced models without removing the web search. And so when I removed that web search, it removed the thread, and that's not why you didn't see it. But I just asked it what it needed to do, and I said, "Tell me which one is easier." And then it say recommended Pandoc. Right. So that gets now we get into the real fun. So Pandoc is a tool you have to install on your computer, and it's a command line tool. So anytime I have to install something on my Mac through the terminal, I get ready for a lot of pain. And it's usually because if I will apologize for a bit of technical babble here, but there are different package managers like Conda or Homebrew on the Mac that you can use. I've used them both. I never keep them updated because I only do this about once every 6 months. I have both of them. They conflict. I got my path wrong. Like getting things set up and installed is just a major pain in the rear. And so, and I presented that problem to it. So, what should I do? Tell me what to do. And it said, here's what I suggest. And it just went step by step and say, hey, you're thinking about Conda or Homebrew, ask. And it gave me a bunch of instructions. And then let me see what I said. Give me all the commands so I can run them at once. I'm lazy. So I don't want to type out all these commands. So it did, gave me the entire commands. And one thing I copied in there, threw it, and I just pasted the results in here. And I made it think for me because I do not care how I am not interested in keeping my skills current for how to maintain the tools on my Mac system. I just want the freaking thing to work as fast as possible. I don't even like thinking about it much, just searching, and I just want to offload this headache to the model, which is what I did. And so it took me step by step, and you can follow my the threads here. And so I got Pandoc installed. I was able to work through asking questions without reading the Pandocs documentation because I'm lazy and I don't want to read the web documentation. I just want it to work. And it gave me the commands. And boom, I ran these commands. And I ran into this problem. Oh, hey, it worked great. I was able to take the markdown, run, Pandoc, generate PowerPoint, open the Google Docs, had it, one slide for each one, broken up by heading one, however it did it, worked great. Unfortunately, the text ran across, like the text was too long. So what I found was the text ran way below the slide. And so now I'm back to the beginning. Like, do I want to go through and edit this thing by hand? No. Is there a simple solution? So I just went back and I started complaining how lazy I am. And can I use PDF? What can I do to make this easier? And it gave me some suggestions. And the one was to install LaTeX, which I haven't used since grad school, to try and to do it more efficiently. And so I started running LaTeX, and I ran the commands, and it started working. And I, after about 2 minutes, looked up, and it was at 1% installation. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and watch this. So I just basically started complaining and said, this is taking a while. It's a pain in the ass. Is there an easier way? And I said, basically, I just said, can you just compress the slides? And what it had done is it had put in a lot of bullets in the slides. And when I actually showed all the bullets in Google Docs, that's what put all the spacing. I told it to get rid of the bullets, put it like this. It was 90% of the way there. I jumped into the slides, did some quick editing, made them smaller, deleted a couple things, and I was ready to go. And then after that, everything else I did was put in the instructions for copy mode for using Markdown, and I generated this rather creepy image at the end to use. And I had to generate the copy for putting on LinkedIn and in there it is. Generate the copy and generate the image. Created the event, created the streaming thing on YouTube, and that's it. So that's pretty much all I want to cover. Let me just kind of wrap up with some just bigger picture concepts and advice based on what I'm hearing, because in the course of us offering our services to companies, we run into executives and managers, and people are like, hey, how can I use these tools more efficiently? I'm increasingly getting questions from the C-level. It's usually the CTO or CFO. Honestly, it says, how do I get if it's a CFO, it's a two-part question. How do I get my people to start using this? And how do I figure out which employees I need to keep or which I can let go because they're not able to use these tools? And so if you think your employer or prospective employer is not thinking about how to reduce their workforce by enabling these tools, I would encourage you to think about this from their perspective. I would say 99% of the your colleagues are going to try these tools and give up after 5 minutes. And the competitive benefit you have is by investing the time to figure out not only how to get really good with doing this, but your ability to teach other people to do it as well. And whether you're going into a job interview or you're interested in keeping your credibility at your existing employer, I would highly encourage you to invest the time it takes to make yourself more efficient and learn how you can use this, how it can't, where it works, where it doesn't. And I can promise you that it will distinguish you from almost everybody else in the workplace because most people aren't going to do that. The overwhelming majority of people are going to give up right away. They're going to complain about it. They're going to get frustrated because these tools can be frustrated and they don't work well. Interesting. They don't work well right away. It takes time and effort like any other skill. Um, but the compounding effects of being the one that can generate a plan and a concept or beginning of a solution very quickly, instead of just calling a meeting where you start by talking, the difference between what you're able to do and the people who are not using these tools, that gap is going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger if you invest the time in staying on the cutting edge. And with that, that's the end of the that's the end of my that's the end of the sermon. And I will be happy to take any questions. And if you have any tips for me, please share them because, as you can tell, I'm still trying to figure this out myself. Teague had a good comment. So it's wild that it takes Pro to combine sections reliably. I don't, you know, I don't know. I have not done the experiment to say, do you need Pro to do this or do you need O1? O1 might work fine. Um, I've got Pro on my desktop, and I usually will kick it off for that type of work. I think I've seen an incremental benefit, but I would say O1 might be able to do just as good. So maybe that wasn't the best example. I used the O1 Pro selectively simply because it's slow more than anything. All right. Well, thank you very much. If this was useful, please let me know on LinkedIn, which is probably the easier way to reach me, or you can leave comments in here and let me know if you want to see more of these. This is obviously a journey that I'm taking on my own and continuously trying to learn. I'm going to try to look at open ChatGPT tasks today. I'm a little skeptical that it's going to make that big of a difference, but I'm open to the evidence if I find that it's useful. I hope this was useful. Thank you very much, and good luck in increasing your own personal productivity.